Grief does not arrive like a storm. It doesn't crash against the shore with thunder and warnings. It comes like smoke. A silent, ice-cold chill. It seeps through the keyhole, under the door, through closed windows. It doesn't announce its arrival. It just settles. It dulls the edges of the world. It steals the color from the sunlight and the sound from the air. For 9-year-old Leo Sterling, the fog descended on a Tuesday. It was a Tuesday that began like any other. The scratching of his pencil in his math notebook. The smell of chalk dust and floor wax. The drone of Mrs. Gable's voice explaining fractions. Leo wasn't a child who lived in the uncomfortable, chaotic world of his classmates. He lived inside his own head. In a world of calculations, systems, and order. He knew the precise orbital periods of Jupiter's moons. He knew Earth's escape velocity, $11.2 \text, kilometers per second, $. He knew that shoelaces, when tied with a double reverse knot, would not come undone for an average of $8.4 \text hours, $. His classmates found him odd and strange. Quiet. The kid who read textbooks during recess. But his mother, Sarah, she understood. She was the one who spoke his language. While his father, Mark, a good dad with loud laughter and firm handshakes, tried to teach him baseball. Sarah taught him constellations. "That one, Leo," she would whisper in the backyard, her breath fogging in the autumn air. "That is Cassiopeia. It looks like a W. You know, like it's saying we are here." Leo would nod, pressing his small telescope to his eye. They had a code. A secret language borrowed from a show his mother loved, and he was beginning to understand. She wouldn't say, "I love you, baby," when tucking him in. She would raise her hand, splitting her fingers down the middle. "Live long and prosper," she would smile. And Leo would raise his small hand in return. Peace and long life. It was their system. It was their order. And it worked. On that Tuesday, the smoke was waiting for him. He came home from school. The house was silent. The air was heavy. His father's car was in the driveway, but he wasn't watching the news. He was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a coffee mug. He hadn't even turned on the lights. "Dad?" Mark Sterling looked up. His eyes were wrong. They looked hollow. "Leo, sit down." There was no ambulance. No dramatic scene. It had been very fast, the doctors said. At the grocery store. An aneurysm. It was a word Leo didn't understand, but he understood the silence that followed. His mother was gone. There was no sound. No color. There was only smoke. The following days were a blur of errors. People in black clothes filled the house, speaking in whispers. Leo immediately hid in his room. He could hear the whispers through the door. Tragic. So young. And the boy. He heard a woman he didn't know, a cousin, say, "He hasn't even cried. That's not natural." Leo didn't understand at all. Cry. Crying was a biological response to pain or acute emotional distress. He didn't feel pain. He felt nothing. He felt wrong. The system was broken. The world was literally a machine with a missing gear. The people left. The casseroles in the fridge remained uneaten. And the silence became permanent. One night, days later, his father found him in the backyard watching the sky. Mark was struggling. He burned the toast. He forgot to make lunch. He wandered the house like a ghost, and when he looked at Leo, his face looked like it was about to crumble. He walked out onto the dew-soaked grass and placed a heavy arm on Leo's shoulders. "She loved the stars, didn't she?" Mark murmured. It wasn't really a question. Leo just nodded, his eyes fixed on Cassiopeia. Mark cleared his throat. He was floundering, drowning in his own grief, trying to find a rope to throw to his son. "You know, buddy," he said, his voice thick. Your mom, she isn't gone. She became an angel now, yes, that's it. She is up there." He pointed with his finger. Not at a specific star. Just up. She's in the stars, Leo. Watching us. Mark squeezed his son's shoulder, then turned back inside, the sliding glass door shutting with a soft, final click. Leo remained. In the stars. The words echoed in his 9-year-old mind. A mind that took everything literally. A mind that didn't understand metaphors. His father hadn't offered him comfort. He had given him a location. For Leo, grief was not an emotion. It was a logistical problem. His mother wasn't gone. Her location had changed. And as he looked at those specks of light, a new calculation began to form. A new system. The stars were $11.2 text, kilometers per second, dollar away. At least. He couldn't cry. Crying wouldn't solve the problem. He needed a machine. The next morning, Mark woke up to a sound. It was the first real noise in the house in a week. Looking for Leo, he found him in the garage. His son was wearing his work clothes, swimming goggles, and a pair of his mother's yellow gardening gloves. He was dragging his father's old, rusty wheelbarrow toward the center of the garage. Leo? What are you doing? It's 6 in the morning. Leo looked up, his expression one of pure, focused intensity. I need the aluminum siding. The piece behind the shed. What for? For the fuselage, Leo said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Mark just stared. For the fuselage? I'm building a rocket, Leo said. Then he turned around and started measuring the wheelbarrow with a tape measure. Mark stood there, frozen. 100 reactions knotted in his throat. This is nonsense. Go back to bed immediately. You can't be serious. But he said none of them. Because he was looking at his son's eyes. And, for the first time since Tuesday, the smoke in his eyes was gone. They were clear. They were sharp. They were alive. A project. Mark's broken heart latched onto this thought. It's a project. It's something. It's better than the silence. Better than the boy staring blankly at the wall. Okay, Mark said hesitantly. Okay, buddy. Just don't use the power saw. Leo acknowledged him without looking up. I only need the hacksaw for the chassis. Mark sighed, ran his hands through his uncombed hair, and went inside to make coffee that would taste like ash. He didn't understand. But he didn't have to. The project had begun. Leo's world was no longer a house. It was a garage. He salvaged old plywood from the treehouse they never finished. He found the bent and cobwebbed aluminum siding and flattened it on the concrete floor using a hammer. The chassis was the wheelbarrow with the wheel removed. The fuselage was plywood bent roughly into a cylinder. The skin was aluminum attached with hundreds of roofing nails. It wasn't something elegant or beautiful. It was a scar. It was a scrap heap. It looked desperate. He worked with a frightening dedication. He woke up before his father. He came home from school and went straight to the garage without even taking off his backpack. He missed dinners. He even forgot to shower. He found an old, orange traffic cone in a ditch by the highway. This became the nose cone. He went to the kitchen and borrowed 3 rolls of aluminum foil. This, he explained to his confused father, was for thermal insulation. In 2 weeks, it stood in the middle of the garage. 3 meters tall. Crooked, silver, a magnificent monstrosity. Mark watched from the kitchen window, his heart a cold stone in his chest. This was more than a project. This was an obsession. Maybe we should talk to someone, Leo? Mark tried one evening. Dr. Reeves? Your teacher? Leo was soldering wires to a small circuit board. Guidance system isn't finished. Can't talk. The world outside the garage began to notice. Kyle Tanaka and his friends. The neighborhood pack. They lived on bikes and communicated in giggles. They skidded to a halt at the end of the Sterling's driveway. Whoa! Kyle shouted, his voice cracking with preteen arrogance. Sterling is building a time machine. Trying to go back to when his mom was, alive. His friends laughed. Loudly. Leo didn't break his composure. He didn't give up. He was securing a fin. He just hammered louder. "Hey, Rocket Boy!" Kyle yelled. "Where are you flying to? The loony bin?" A rock hit the aluminum hull. It left a sharp, ugly dent. Leo stopped hammering. He put the hammer on the floor, walked to his bench, picked up his father's small ball-peen hammer, walked back to the dent, and with precise, methodical taps, he smoothed the dent out from the inside. Kyle and his friends went quiet. This wasn't fun. He wasn't crying. He wasn't yelling. He was just working. Bored, they got on their bikes and rode away. But the name stuck. Rocket Boy. Mark saw this. He rushed out, his face red. "You kids! Get out of here! Leave him alone!" But Leo didn't even look at his father. He was already working on the next fin. Mark stood helplessly in the driveway, a guardian with nothing to guard. His son was inside a fortress. Not a fortress of metal and wood, but a fortress of pure, unadulterated purpose. The rocket was almost finished. But it was missing two crucial things: the payload and the engine. The payload was the easy part. That night, Leo sat at his desk. Not the workbench. His school desk. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator. He took out a single sheet of lined paper. Smoothed it out. His pencil hovered in the air. "What do you say to a star?" He didn't write "I miss you." That was an emotion, imprecise. He didn't write "I'm sad." That was a state of being, irrelevant. He wrote a report. A mission update. "Dear Mom. Day 23. The house is not operating at optimal capacity. Dad burned the pasta. Carbonara protocol failed. I am fine. School is the same. Mrs. Gable is on Chapter 4, Compound Fractions. It is not hard. Kyle Tanaka remains an external variable. He calls me Rocket Boy. I do not mind. Construction is 94% complete. Guidance system is primitive, relying on weight distribution. I am concerned about propulsion. I am sending this letter. Please acknowledge receipt. I will be watching Quadrant 4 Cassiopeia at night. He paused. Bit his pencil. He added one last line. P.S. I am sending a flashlight. I will signal. 3 short. 3 long. 3 short. So you know which star I am. He folded the letter. He put it in a Ziploc bag along with a small metal flashlight. He squeezed all the air out and sealed it. Payload. But the engine, that was the problem. He had read his father's old NASA textbooks. He knew he needed a chemical reaction. A real one. He had tried baking soda and vinegar in a 2-liter bottle. It fizzed. It was pathetic. It couldn't lift a feather, let alone 10 feet of plywood in grief. He needed fire. He searched the attic, not knowing what he was looking for, and he found it. A small wooden box. Inside, buried in faded cotton, were 3 pristine, C-class model rocket motors. Relics from a hobby his father had given up long ago. They were small. C-class. Designed for a rocket the size of a cardboard tube. His was the size of a small tree. He held one in his hand. Not enough. Not even close to enough. But 3 of them? Clustered? A new calculation. He ran to his room, to his notebook. He knew the approximate weight of the rocket, $42 kilograms. He knew the thrust of a single C-motor, $10 newtons, average. 3 together, $30 newtons. It wasn't enough. Not for orbit. Not for escape velocity. But was it enough to break through? He didn't need to go to the stars. He just needed to send the letter. He needed to get it up. Past the clouds? To where his mother was. It was enough. It had to be enough. He spent the next 2 days wiring them together beautifully. A complex, fragile web of ignition wires leading to a single two-prong connector. He had made a small engine mount out of a metal coffee can. He finished on a Friday. He stepped back and looked at his creation. It was crooked. It was heavy. It was ugly. And it was perfect. Tomorrow, he would launch. It seems the universe has a cruel sense of irony. Launch day was a day of mourning. Leo woke up to the sound of pouring rain. Not a storm. Just a cold, depressing November drizzle. The sky wasn't blue. It wasn't black. It was a single, solid, hopeless shade of gray. A ceiling. Mark Sterling was sipping his third coffee at the kitchen window. He watched the rain and felt a small, bitter sense of relief. Rain meant delay. Rain meant he wouldn't have to watch whatever was going to happen. Then he heard that sound. He turned. His son was dragging the 10-foot rocket out of the garage. Dragging it into the middle of the backyard. The rain plastered Leo's brown hair to his pale forehead. He was soaked in seconds. But he didn't seem to notice. "Leo!" Mark shouted, sliding the glass door open. Cold, wet air hit his face. "Leo, what are you doing? It's pouring!" Leo didn't even look at his face. He was propping the rocket up with bricks, trying to keep it upright in the muddy grass. "Launch window is now." "What?" "Leo, stop! It's wet. It won't work. The fuse, or whatever. Come on, son, come on, let's wait for clear weather. We can wait for a sunny day." Leo stopped working. He turned to his father. His face was calm, void of all emotion. "The sky is just water, Dad. She is beyond the water. It doesn't matter." Mark's words caught in his throat. She is beyond the water. He couldn't argue with that. Helplessly, he watched Leo unspool a long, thin wire from the base of the rocket back to the garage. The ignition system. An audience had arrived. Even in the rain. Kyle Tanaka and two friends were at the back fence, huddled under a single large golf umbrella. They were pointing, laughing, filming with a phone. "He's really doing it!" Kyle howled. "Rocket Boy is gonna be Mud Boy!" Mark took a step toward them. "You kids! I'm warning you! Go home immediately! It's a free country, Mr. Sterling!" Kyle retorted. "We want to see the explosion!" "Ignore them, Dad!" came Leo's voice. He was at the base of the rocket, making a final adjustment. He reached inside his jacket. Pulled out the Ziploc bag. He carefully placed the letter and the flashlight into the nose cone, the traffic cone. And sealed it. He stepped back. Walked slowly, with determined steps through the mud, to the garage. He stood inside, holding the two ends of the wire. In his other hand was a 9-volt battery. This was the moment. Mark stood on the porch, arms crossed, shivering. Watching his son. Kyle and his friends watched the rocket. Leo looked up at the gray, weeping sky. He took a deep breath. He didn't count down. He just whispered, "Ground control, to Major Mom." And he touched the wires to the battery. For one long second. Nothing. Kyle giggled. "It's a..." 3 motors fired simultaneously. A massive cloud of white chemical smoke engulfed the rocket. It was working. The rocket shook. It lifted off the bricks. It rose. 1 foot. 5 feet. 10 feet. It cleared the backyard fence. Rising fast, leaving a thick trail of smoke behind it. Leo's heart hammered in his chest for the first time. It works. It climbed. 20 feet. 30 feet. It was above the neighbor's roof. And then, the problem. Rain. Wind. Uneven thrust. The tilt began. "It's going sideways!" Kyle yelled. It was no longer rising. It was arcing. Spewing smoke and fire over the street, it carved an arc like a wounded silver bird. It reached its apex, maybe 15 meters high. The nose cone. The traffic cone popped off. The stress was too much. The rocket body, plywood and metal, lost all aerodynamics. It tumbled, flipping over and over. It crashed. It slammed right into the middle of the street, skidding on the wet asphalt, turning into a broken, smoking heap of scrap. Mission failed. Kyle and his friends were screaming with laughter. It blew up! It totally failed! Loser! Leo didn't hear them. He wasn't looking at the rocket body. He was looking at the letter. Freed from the nose cone, the Ziploc bag caught the wind. It fluttered. It drifted. It floated slowly, down, down, down. Slowly, like a single, tragic leaf. It landed, exactly 10 feet away from him. Right in the middle of the biggest, muddiest puddle in the backyard. It had landed. And it was over. Leo stood in the shelter of the garage. He just stared. He stared at the Ziploc bag. At the muddy water swirling around it. He looked at the smoking wreckage in the street. He heard the laughter from the fence. The smoke was gone. The purpose was gone. The mission had failed. The system was broken. The calculations were wrong. He had tried to solve the problem. And the problem was not solvable. His father, Mark, watched him. Leo, he whispered. Son, hey, it's okay. Leo didn't move. Even a little. And then, his face, which had been a stoic, pale mask for 26 days, began to change. His chin crumpled. His lower lip trembled. His eyes squeezed shut. And the first tear cut a clean path through the dirt on his cheek. Followed by another. And another. It wasn't a cry. It was a sound. A sound that didn't belong to a 9-year-old child. A raw, guttural, animal sound. The sound of a dam holding back an ocean, finally breaking. He collapsed. He fell to his knees out of the garage, into the mud. Sobs tore out of him, shaking his entire small body. It didn't work! He screamed into the mud. It didn't reach her! Mark was running. He didn't care about the rain, the mud, or the laughing kids at the fence. He fell to his knees in the puddle, wrapped his arms around his son, pulled him close. It's okay, Leo! Mark choked out, his own tears finally falling, mixing with the rain. It's okay, buddy. I'm here. ICC couldn't. Leo wailed, burying his face in his father's wet jacket. I couldn't send it. I couldn't even say goodbye. That word. He had said that word. I know, Mark cried, holding the back of his son's head. I know. It's okay, Leo. He lifted his son up. It's okay to miss her. He carried his son, still sobbing, still clinging to him, inside. Away from the rain. Away from the broken rocket. Away from the laughter. The fog was finally lifting. And the storm had finally arrived. You see, grief is not a problem to be solved. It is not a mission to be completed. It is not a location to be reached. It is just a weight. A weight to be carried. And for 26 days Leo had tried to carry it alone. He wasn't healed yet. The sadness hadn't disappeared. But the silence was broken. He spoke. And he cried. His father, they began to cry together. The rocket stayed in the street for a whole day until Mark called the city for garden waste removal. He kept the nose cone. A week later, the garage had become different. It was cleaner. More orderly. Mark had cleared the bench. Not just Leo's side. His own side too. He had bought a new kit. A small one. An Estes Alpha 3. On this one, Mark said, his voice raspy. On this one. I think we need to glue the fins before we paint the body. Leo was sitting on the workbench stool. He picked up the small, plastic nose cone. He nodded. Okay, he whispered. We should read the instructions this time. Mark smiled. A real smile. It felt rusty. Yeah, buddy, he said. Yeah, I think we should read the instructions too. They launched the following Sunday. It was a clear, cold, bright blue day. The little rocket flew straight and true, hundreds of feet high. It deployed its small, red parachute. It drifted back down. Leo and his father watched it fall. Leo didn't send a letter. And he hadn't needed to. That night, Leo was at his window. He looked up. Cassiopeia. The W. We are here. It was quiet. Then, he raised his small, 9-year-old hand to the glass. And he split his fingers down the middle. He didn't need a rocket. And he didn't need a flashlight. He just needed to remember the code. Peace and long life, Mom, he whispered. And for the first time, he felt her answer. We all have rockets. Projects we build to keep the smoke away. Impossible missions we set for ourselves just to avoid that simple, impossible truth. We build them out of scrap, hope, and denial. And they are, almost always, destined to fail. But sometimes, failure is the only thing that can save us. Sometimes you have to build a rocket. Just to learn how to stand in the rain. And finally, let go.